T minus 50 seconds. T minus 40 seconds. T minus 30 seconds. T minus 20 seconds. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Own it, own it, own it, Kong. I own it. It did.
Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling show on the planet. Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling show on the planet.
What's up, y'all? Caught me mid-tweet. Happy Monday. I think it's Monday. Happy Monday. Professor's in the background like, yes, it's Monday. Happy Monday, y'all. Welcome to WWT Live, Women's Wrestling Talk, the number one women's wrestling show on the planet. We have so much to talk about. We're going to be talking about Logan Paul. We're going to talk a little bit about All Access. I'm only talking about a little bit because we have a whole after show that talks about it. So if you haven't seen it, you definitely want to check that out. And so much more. There's just so much TV. There's so much wrestling. It's a good time to be alive if you have the time. Like if you were like a 16-year-old with rich parents, this is a very good time to be alive. Anywho, I'm not alone. Mr. Professor's in the building. How are you doing?
I'm doing really, really well. How are you, TK?
I'm good. Like, you remember the time when you were like a teenager, you knew every single album that was coming out. You knew every single, like, you could do the lyrics, you knew the TV show, the references, the movies, all the things. And now I do that for a living. And I'm like,
it's crazy trying to keep up.
It is.
It's crazy.
There's like so many shows that I'm still behind. I still need to finish up watching Swarm for work. And we just watched shows that I haven't watched. And I'm like, I'll get to it on the weekend. And now we're here on Monday. Anyway.
No, I get it. I'm a couple of weeks behind on Power. And yeah, it's a thing.
I heard Session is really good. And people are losing their mind off of that. And
yeah, people are, there's so much to keep up with. It really is a lot. And, we remember when wrestling used to only come on once or twice a week, and we were excited for that. And now, in the last 5 years, we've moved to every single day, with new content, no less. So it's a lot to keep up with, but I'm good. Did you enjoy Easter? Yeah. Did you enjoy Easter at all?
What did I do? I did. And this sounds terrible, and it sounds very bachelorette-ish. I stayed home. I still need to catch up on my church. I do Zoom, but I stayed home. I was still recovering. Not recovering, but I was kind of sick last week, and then I decided to take it outside on Saturday, and my body's like, you only like 60, 70%. I don't know what you was trying to do. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to stay home. And I had a bunch of orders. So shout out to the people supporting center in.
Yes.
A bunch of orders that came in. So I just had layers of work that I needed to do that I knew that I wouldn't be. Now I remember what I want to talk to you about. Okay. Now I'll talk to you after the show. But I know to do it later this week that I needed to get it done. So that's why I spent my Sunday. I got to sleep in.
Cool.
Like sleep in where you don't have an alarm. Like, cause I naturally wake up at about 7, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna sleep. I'm gonna sleep in. Like, I'm going to stay in bed. So I stayed as long as possible till about 11, And then I just did work for the rest of the day and caught up on wrestling, caught up on TV shows, did research, and caught up on a lot of work. So, and the funny thing is, I'm still behind. Like,
yeah, I get it.
Anyways,
totally.
Enough about the life in Easter. Let's get back to what you guys are really here for.
Top rope.
What do we got first?
Holy cow. So over the weekend, there were literally about 4 or 5 events that happened, from SmackDown to AEW with 2 live hours, including a live Rampage and Battle of the Belts. The NWA had a pay-per-view. New Japan had a pay-per-view. So we'll start with the New Japan one because there's a couple of big news items coming out of there. New Japan had Sakura Genesis, over the weekend. And kind of the really big news items, Mercedes Moné had her first title defense, and she had a triple threat match against Azumi and Hazuki. She won that match, and let me tell you something. Mercedes Moné is absolutely, positively not Sasha Banks. Let me say that again. Mercedes Moné is absolutely, positively not Sasha Banks. It feels like she's been unchained, and there are things that she's able to do in a ring that she wasn't able to do before. There's a speed and a pace that she's able to move at now that she has not been able to move at before. So
do you say that because of the people she was surrounded by, or because obviously there's a slightly different style?
Yes.
So is that because of it, or are you just the WWE style, or the women around her? What do you mean by that?
I think it's all of the above, right? Like, certainly in WWE, for the time that she was there, she certainly helped to usher in a new era in terms of stronger style action, some slightly faster paced action. But again, you can only do that based on your dance partners. So with her being in Japan, the dance partners are different. The style is different. Thusly, the pace is different. And that's one of the questions that usually ends up happening when someone moves either from Japan to America or vice versa. Can they adjust to whatever the new pace is? And so she's proving that she can adjust very, very well against top-tiered stars. So shout out to her. Big move for her there. 2 other big pieces of news coming out of Sakura Genesis is we have new tag team champions. Aussie Open defeated Bishamon to become the IWGP Heavyweight Tag Team Champions. Now, this is significant because during WrestleMania week, back-to-back, they had shots at the Impact World Tag Titles and the Ring of Honor World Tag Titles. And so out of 3 championships, you win the 3rd. Not a bad day at the office at all. So congratulations to them. And perhaps of all of this, the biggest news is that Sonata defeats Kazuchika Okada to become the IWGP World Heavyweight Champion. Okada losing in New Japan at this point is kind of like Roman losing in America. It's that kind of thing. You literally associate New Japan Pro Wrestling with Kazuchika Okada. So this was a big match. It was a big moment. So congratulations to Sonata. Some interesting things happening for New Japan, but a very, very big weekend for them. In the world of AEW Ring of Honor, not a whole lot changed. No titles changed hands over the 2 hours of live television, but certainly it's always good when you get live television from AEW between Rampage and Battle for the belts. Jade Cargill actually wrestled, which was kind of cool because we don't get to see her wrestle a whole lot these days. So shout out to her. And Sky Blue also got signed to AEW as well. So there's that. And then, am I moving too fast or are we good?
No, you're good.
Okay, cool. NWA 312. Let me adjust my seat for this because NWA 312, I've been vocal about the name of this pay-per-view because I just feel like, could we not be a wee bit more creative than grabbing the area code? But NWA 312 happened in the Chicago area over the weekend, and a couple of big pieces of news coming out of this. EC3 becomes the new national heavyweight champion by defeating Sion. We've crowned the first ever NWA Women's Television Champion. Kenzie Page is the new champion by defeating Max the Impaler. So that happened. And then pretty much everything else in terms of championships retained and remained the same. Camille retained against La Rosa Negra for the Women's World Championship, and Tyrus defeats Chris Adonis to retain the NWA World Championship. That's a lot of wrestling that happened literally in a 24-hour period between all of these companies. It's pretty crazy.
I need to find that clip. Like, if anybody wants to assist, I think it was late summer. If anybody can find that clip for me of Mr. Professor saying that, I would be indebted, because like, I kind of know where it is, but that's a lot of sifting through. So
it is.
If anybody wants to assist that, because that clip will go into the intro. Like, that's how important that clip is. So I'm just saying.
Yeah, the great lineage of the NWA World Championship. Tyrus is our representative. But yeah, that's all that happened over the weekend in terms of those big cards. Yeah, pretty wild. A lot of action. A whole lot.
Yeah, it's so yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot.
It is. It is.
But people are watching, so
they are.
Who cares about our feelings? So yeah. All right. Well, what else? What do we have next?
Well, what we have next is this. Wednesday night on Dynamite, we had a championship versus career match that happened where FTR took on the Guns. And if FTR won, they'd become the AEW World Tag Champions. If they lost, they would lose their careers in AEW. A lot of people wondered, was this going to be the swan song for AEW and FTR? Well, if you watch the match, you know that FTR won the AEW World Tag Team Championships, thus ultimately spending more time with AEW. Well, in a recent article, they had talked about the fact that they did take time away from wrestling in January to determine what would happen, and that they indeed had made their decision about signing with AEW prior to the sale of WWE and Vince McMahon's return to WWE. And so Dax Harwood said that he believes that Tony Khan really gets FTR. He understands that we're average, everyday human beings that just cut on with the fans because they can relate to us. He says that Vince has a business track record that proves that he's obviously very intelligent to the business. But I think he knows what the revival was better than what we were able to present. So very interesting. Clearly, the revival, no, really more so FTR, they know and feel more confident about what Tony Khan can do for them than what the WWE can. So they've made the decision to stay with AEW. Plus, they said that the schedule for AEW was going to accommodate them a lot better as family men. Of course, they're going to tape pretty much once, maybe twice a week, tops, and that is, of course, if you have a live edition of Rampage, but we're not going to see them on Dark or anything like that. So working once a week is far different than working twice a week and potentially on house shows as well. So that's their decision. FTR is sticking with AEW.
Yeah, and I think too, fans wise, I think what people need to take into consideration too, even though on a whole we are wrestling fans, let's be honest, like, you tend to gravitate towards one promotion or the other, or the other, or the other. Some people strictly indies, they could give a flying F what's going on in WWE. Right. Same thing, vice versa with AEW. There's some people who are very much more invested in a certain promotion because that promotion gives them back what they're looking for. And I think with FTR, AEW, it seems like a better fit for them as far as fans appreciating their work too.
Yes.
So
yes.
I think it makes sense for them. And that the question that I asked a lot of the superstars when I spoke to them last week is like, what are you gonna do with your, and I did this purposely, what are you going to do with your 24 to 48 hours off? And every single one of them chuckled like, oh, you know, like.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
it's not. It's a tough schedule. I mean, happy
Yeah.
belated birthday to Bianca Belair. She talked about it on
Yes.
the post. She was like,
Yes.
"I am staying my ass home. I don't
Right.
want no planes, no
Right.
hotels, nothing." Like, so I think it just there's the ebbs and flows and what works for you, but
Yeah.
also what the fans are willing to appreciate. So good for them. But get
Yeah.
that money.
I applaud them for choosing themselves. You know, you have to make that choice. And I don't think people always understand. A lot of people say that they would go where the bag is, and I get it. But you really do have to weigh what's more important to you. You know, is it being away, making the bag, and not being able to have the time to spend with your family? Or is it potentially making slightly less money, but having more time with your family to actually enjoy that? You have to ultimately choose that. Everyone's situation is different, but I'm really glad that they were able to, you know, find something that would work for them.
Yeah, else you get a son like Dominic, so you don't want that.
Well said, Prison Dom.
Prison Dom, man. And by the way,
Mm-hmm.
this is like how the entertainment industry is. It's literally two degrees of separation, and I can't really talk about all the things. However, Jimmy Allen, he sang, I believe, is America the Beautiful at WrestleMania.
Yes.
And I actually had to do research. Hold on.
Okay.
Research about him for a show. And he's a country singer, absolutely amazing. So if you don't know who he is, like I had no idea who he was. And I saw him walking around at WrestleMania after the fact too. But crazy, amazing guy. Even if you don't like country, definitely give him a listen. What do we have next?
All right. So up next, one of the things that AEW did very, very well is expose a lot of people to some of the newer stars of AAA. One of those being Commander, the other being El Hijo del Vikingo. Well, AAA's Triple Mania is getting ready to do something that we've not seen it do really before, and that is it is heading to Fight TV, which is crazy. So they've got a big show, Triple Mania 31, that's coming up in just a couple of days. April the 16th, it's going to be in Monterey. And then they're going to have their future events, including the one on July 15th in Tijuana and August the 12th in Mexico City. They will all stream on Fight TV. And for those interested in how much it costs, it's only $22.99 for one event, or for all three, you can get them for $60, which is a pretty solid deal. So the event that's happening next week on the 16th will be headlined by El Hijo del Vikingo, defending the AAA Mega Championship in a fatal four-way against Commander, Rich Swann, and Swerve Strickland. Ooh. So if you remember, that's going to be nuts. Do you remember the Super Card of Honor? Hijo del Vikingo defended the AAA Mega Championship against Commander, and that match was crazy. Add Rich Swann and Swerve Strickland to the mix, and it's going to be crazy. So there's an entire card that's going to be happening there. A mask versus match. That mask versus mask match is going to happen. It's going to be a 10-man steel cage match going down there as well. And in addition to the AAA Mega Championship. So again, you'll be able to see Triple Mania 31 and the following Triple Mania events from AAA on Fight TV live as they happen. And that is going to be special. Again, proving the universal and global reach of pro wrestling. Let's add AAA to the mix.
Done up. I'll see you later. Congratulations.
You have to warn me when you're going to do that.
Oh my goodness.
That is so good. But what a time, like you were saying at the start of the show, what a time to be a wrestling fan. Literally any form of pro wrestling that you like is available now. You know, if you are all strictly sports entertainment, there's a brand of WWE for you, because there's equally a brand if you're interested in more strong style, straightforward wrestling, indie, you name it, it's all out there. So enjoy all of this great wrestling, folks.
This is true. What do we have next?
I mentioned sports entertainment, and one of the things that really kind of grinded the gears of a lot of people is one Logan Paul. Logan Paul, who had what a picture. Logan Paul, who had announced that his contract was ending at WrestleMania. Many people felt like, okay, this is going to be the swan song. He was going away. Of course, he lost that match to Seth Rollins, and many were ready to say peace and a bye-bye. Well, not so fast, because Logan Paul has indeed re-signed with the WWE. Now, there's not been any news on the details of his new deal, either coming from Logan Paul or coming from WWE. It's being believed that he'll work the same kind of schedule as he worked for the last year. But there are people that actually were questioning the authenticity of this because, well, it seemed as though the new contract picture seemed to mirror the old contract picture from last year, with the only difference being Stephanie McMahon not being in the picture and the shirt or the jacket of Logan Paul being slightly different. Triple H had the exact same suit on with the exact same pose, and people were ready to go, hey, this isn't real. It was photoshopped. But Logan Paul has indeed confirmed it was not photoshopped. It was just, yes, same pose. Stephanie is not present, and a different flavor of his prime drink is in the picture as well. So it looks like we've got Logan Paul for a little bit longer in WWE.
He actually is. He has more. He's thicker too.
Mm-hmm.
He has more muscle on him.
Yes, he does.
I could see why people would say. I could see why people would say that. But like
at a quick glance, if you look at it really, really quickly, I mean, you kind of have to examine it. Yeah.
Yeah, the lighting too looks kind of, but like, why? Like, out of all the people I mean, he does troll folks too, but like, I feel like he has better things to do than to do that.
He does.
And I would love to see the numbers. I feel like, I know there's a huge percentage of the wrestling population that doesn't like him to be a part of WWE, but I'm willing to bet there are some people who paid attention to WrestleMania a little bit more because of him.
Think about this. At one point, the most liked photo in WWE was the Instagram photo he did when he did that leap off of the top rope with his phone onto Roman Reigns during the Saudi show. That's because of Logan Paul, and so while wrestling purists may say, hey, he takes away from people who've worked really hard to be at WrestleMania, et cetera, et cetera. What he is what the WWE wanted, which is somebody with great social media cachet. And so, again, it's a great business move for WWE because they understand what they want. What they want is somebody with great social push. They understand that those are the numbers that matter to them these days, far more than, Nielsen ratings and the like. So you go after somebody with someone who has great social presence. And we cannot deny he's an incredible athlete. You may not like him, but he's doing top tier things in there. We've seen tons of celebrities come in that ring and stink up the joint. But between him and Bad Bunny, they really, and Snoop. Well, Snoop gets a pass for obvious reasons. There's an instinctive nature that they have that makes it very, very different now for celebrities who want to hop into the ring. So if Logan Paul is good enough to get a deal because of his athleticism and his social media prowess, so be it. He doesn't need to be WWE champion. He's already winning for them.
Yeah. And this is crossing over on all fronts. If you look at a lot of, take Jennifer Hudson. She wasn't necessarily a social media person, but she wasn't trained to be a host either. She was trained to be a singer. And a lot of people who are crossing, Sherry Shepherd, a lot of people who are crossing in different platforms as far as radio, podcasting, all this other stuff. They're typically not the traditional whatever. Right. It's like, and I forgot, this might have been Kevin Undergaro from AfterBuzz who said, "You are now the brand." And so people want to buy the brand and insert you into whatever their product is. And that doesn't matter what it is. And so that's the blueprint that Logan Paul and Jake Paul and all the Pauls are doing. And that's why, and the fact that they are, like you were saying, that they are athletic. Yeah. Now, no other celebrity can come and say, I want to be a part of this and not, treat it as such. So they're actually elevating it on a certain side. But for wrestling purists, nothing's really pure anymore. Like if you think about anything, movies, TV shows, radios, music, all that stuff, it's not one thing anymore. It's several things that make it up. So congratulations. Make your money.
Absolutely. But you're right. It is, and I think we have been so desensitized to it in other areas that we don't even think about it. The first thing that comes to mind is Steve Harvey. How he went from being a comedian to suddenly becoming an actor of sorts, then a TV, now he's got a radio show, then he's hosting Family Feud, right? Like
Cannon.
Right.
They're all started off as a comedian.
Exactly. So it is the ability to parlay something from one space into another as long as you're able to keep your brand consistent. And so if that includes WWE or some form of sports or entertainment, that comes par for the course,
Yeah, it does. But we'll see what happens. What do you think is next for Logan?
I don't know. Because the matches that he's had have all been with top level stars. So you've already fought Roman, you've already fought Seth. There are plenty of other people for him to fight. It's just a question of what's going to make the most sense. Understanding it won't probably be like a long-term war type of thing. So it'll be interesting. I'll be very intrigued to see who he ends up in the ring against. I don't see him getting in the ring with like Gunther. Like I don't see that happening.
Roman, Seth.
Yes. Maybe Ricochet. They could pull off something from that spot that they did from the Rumble. That'd be an interesting attraction kind of match, I think. Yeah.
Huh. We'll see. We'll see.
Ooh, that's interesting.
That would be a good one.
Yeah. I like that.
That would be a good one.
For a few reasons, I like that. Yeah.
But would Logan buy into that?
Yeah, because Logan would probably say, I'm the bigger social media star.
Right. And then on top of that, it seems like if he's already... And I wonder what the whole deal was when they signed him originally, right? Because you've already had a match with Roman, and Roman's the face of the company. So it's like exactly what you were just saying. Like there's two things as a writer in the back, like, okay, well, what are we going to do? Like, what are we going to do now? And then as Logan Paul, when you've already been to the mountaintop, and just like you were saying, he doesn't necessarily need the championship. You've already been, you've touched the people who are like the biggest names, and then say, okay, now we're going to do Grayson Waller. Like,
yeah, for his brand, I don't know that'd be far more beneficial for Grayson Waller than it would for Logan Paul. And Logan Paul is going to want to do a deal that's beneficial for him. So I don't know. This is
we don't know. We don't.
Right.
We don't know.
I mean,
we don't know what Logan wants.
Allegedly. But I do wonder, to that end, who could be the kind of match that would make sense for him in terms of a top tier, I don't know. I mean, I think people would probably want to see him, Brock Lesnar, throw him around a bit. That would be very interesting. Because now,
would Brock want that? Because Brock too is
the question.
That type of person that's like, no.
Yeah, he doesn't. So it's interesting. Now, if this were 7 or 8 years ago, Taker would probably be on the list. Because that would be kind of that type of thing. If Orton was in good health, that would be another one too. At this point, it's just trying to think of who are the top tier stars right now in WWE that could potentially be something that fans would want to see.
Right.
The tough part, though, to your point, though, is okay. So Roman has a win. Excuse me. So Logan has a win over The Miz. He obviously doesn't have a win over Roman, and he doesn't have a win over Seth. Will he continue to get in situations where he brings you all this social media cachet, but doesn't get a win? And then who would sacrifice to lose to Logan Paul?
Ooh.
Because
Yeah.
all of the names we just mentioned would not. I don't see, Randy Orton saying, I'm going to lose to Logan Paul. I don't see Brock saying, Brock didn't lose to Omos. I don't see Brock saying, yeah, I'm going to lose to Logan Paul. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So
Yeah, that's true.
I think
the only person I could see doing it for a bigger payoff in the long run is if he runs it back with Seth. I could see Seth doing it, but then the payoff for whatever the next match is, or it's like, okay, you do this and then you have Roman. Like,
right.
I feel like there has to be something in the background that's like, all right, I'll take this L for this. But yeah, it's a very tricky situation because don't get it twisted. Just because we're in the society now where we have to be all politically correct, we don't have to be politically correct in our mind. And there's things that go on in people's mind, and you could tell by certain mannerisms that certain things are just not going to fly. And you can do whatever you want here, but me and my family or me and my house, we're going to be doing this.
Exactly.
So it's gonna be interesting, which makes me want to watch even more to see what they will do. So
yeah.
On the chat where you see other than seeing Logan completely out of the company, because I know that's where the chat's gonna go. Let me know in the chat where who you think Logan Paul will be, like his next matchup will be. What do we got next?
So WWE, I think we've made it through the week of WrestleMania and then the subsequent week of sales conversations and is Vince McMahon back and all that type of thing. Friday night seemingly proved that Vince is back to wherever he was and Triple H is running things. Reports are that Vince is not at Raw tonight. And so while everybody's kind of distracted by that, the WWE has filed for another trademark. This trademark is for WWE Superstars of Tomorrow. And the specific trademark is in the areas of entertainment services, namely a show about professional wrestling, and entertainment services, namely the production and exhibition of professional wrestling events rendered through broadcast media, including television, and distributed via various platforms across multiple forms of transmission media. So now this leads to the ultimate question: what exactly will WWE Superstars of Tomorrow be? Will this be another show that they have? It seems to kind of be in line with something potentially for, something NXT like. In terms of stars of tomorrow, superstars of the future, what will that mean? One of the things, and I've had so many conversations about this sale and, this new parent company, but one of the things that I think is advantageous about it is they will need new content because you're expanding your platform, you're expanding your reach.
What content do they need?
Well,
here's is they do the Stars of Tomorrow. If they do almost like a hybrid, what Tough Enough used to be, but a college version. So now you have the college kids come together, and I would actually I would have watched that. At this point in my life, I probably wouldn't because I'd just be more jealous. But but that would be really interesting because now you have a lot of different things happening. You have different, because so when I went to Oregon every summer, all the athletes would get together and we used to train together. And it was the most amazing thing because you would be training with softball players, soccer players, football players, all on one field. And we're doing we go to school in the morning, in the afternoon we train, and then we party at night. And if they had tape on this, man, So I feel like that would be really interesting because you have every sport has different types of personalities, and now
Sure.
you're kind of bring them into this WWE personality. And some people will get it, some
Yeah.
people won't. So like all the little nuances. So I think I would watch something like that. But like where are you watching all this television?
Well, I mean, there is the network, which is probably a very safe place for them to house that to get more people. Because one thing they have not done, remember, there was a period when the network first came on that they always had new original programming, whether it was WWE 24, 365, there was a new documentary. They started off with Legends House,
Yeah.
like all of these kinds of things. So, Tough Enough found its way there, and they've kind of stepped away from those kinds of shows. So a show like this, I think, would be brilliant. I think one of the allures to All Access and even to Total Divas was people being able to see what happens behind the curtain or the developmental part of somebody.
Right.
So they could take this and parlay it into that person's debut onto NXT or onto Level Up or something like that. So there are ways to make it work. I'm interested because, we usually hear there's a tryout, and then we'll see these people have been accepted to the Performance Center. And then at some point, we'll see somebody will debut. By then, we've forgotten who's who in the zoo.
Right.
So this would be, if this is the show, this would be a great connector. And it would fill that void of Tough Enough, but would do it in a way that has, again, a spin to it. Because now we're dealing with college athletes, and you can chronicle what they have going on as well. So I think the concept for the show that you're mentioning is interesting. And if that's what they're going to do.
They would be out of college, right? Like the deal. No, because what happened
Not necessarily.
What's his name again?
Steveson. Gable Steveson.
So, like,
my thought was that he's supposed to graduate this year. Oh, that's what I thought, because he still had another year in college.
So how did that deal work? So the deal is when he graduates, then he's going to WWE, or is he training for WWE? Can he do do both because of the new NIL deals where student athletes can do both?
Yeah. So my understanding is that they were supposed to be literally having a ring built for him where he'd be able to train out there while he's in school. And then when that's done, he could make his way over into WWE. It's funny because I messed around and watched WrestleMania 38 again, and I laughed because of how many times they put him on camera and on TV. Like they had clear plans for him at that point. So I'm intrigued to find out what's happened in the last year to where they've all but stopped mentioning his name at all. There's no talk of Gable Steveson. Now, that's not saying that nothing's happening, but just going back and watching WrestleMania 38, it was so clear that there were plans. And if my memory serves me correctly, I thought they had a draft as well, and they drafted him onto Raw. So there were definitely expectations, which will make this upcoming draft, whenever it happens, even more interesting to see if his name will be floated around in there or not. But I think that concept for this new show, Superstars of Tomorrow, will be interesting, and I think I'd be game for it.
Oh yeah, it would be like, dang it, Real World meets Tough Enough.
Yeah,
it'd be all the things.
It would be.
They would need to have Trojan on as a partner. It'd be all the things. It would be crazy.
When you say, you got me, when you said Trojan, I immediately thought USC, and then I realized
I know you did. I know you did.
That's not what she meant.
I know you did. I know it's a subtlety. I don't really hit you with it. It's very,
you just kind of you slide it right under.
You have to know me to, it's like, nah, that's not what she's talking about.
Yeah.
Dylan saying if we heard the rumors for tonight, so we'll get to that in a second. Stephanie saying, I would imagine there'll still be plans for him considering his brothers in NXT. I mean, it's possible. I think it's just, I honestly think it's probably something to do with legal, meaning the nuances with NCAA, the NIL, like contracts over that, WWE, how that works with. because if his school is paying for his education, even though he's, under this new deal where you can accept money, there's some legalities there that there has to be considered. What did you find?
Well, this is interesting. So apparently, not only is he interested in joining the WWE, but he also, ironically, has his eyes on going back to the Olympics. Yes. So
I wonder how that works, though, because I thought with the Olympics, you can't, unless they change the rules, with the Olympics, you can't take, the moment you take money as an athlete, you're no longer in contention of being Olympian. And well, I don't know about wrestling, but for like basketball, they obviously you could do whatever. Track is like that. Once you take money, then you had to go to the Olympics to make money. So it's like it's different. So I wonder how that all kind of works out. I don't know.
It's interesting, but what I'm seeing is he definitely has interest in going back to the Olympics next year. So
that would be a good one if he wins. That's good for
WWE. It would be, because if he's able to do that and be a 2-time Olympic gold medalist, that puts him in a space.
That's his story right there.
That it writes itself.
Yeah, he can coast on that one for at least 5 years.
Easily.
Well, we'll see what happens. You want to get some history for the folks?
Sure, let's do that.
It's wrestling facts. Yeah.
All right, so we're not going to go too far back today. We're going to start back in 2000. Now, this is really interesting because WCW, if you were watching then, you knew that they were in some very interesting times. WCW, the week before, did something that no wrestling live promotion is done, and that is they took a hiatus. They literally aired a best of show to kind of get their promotion together. So this day in 2000, they came back together to literally reset WCW. So Eric Bischoff and Vince Russo, they returned to WCW as creative heads. And in so doing, they literally strip everybody of their WCW championships. And they're trying to start fresh. Now, you talked about legalities. This is interesting because this was also the debut of Mike Awesome. But here's the problem. Mike Awesome was the ECW champion at the time. And there were some legal issues for him being on television because he had not gotten out of his deal with Paul Heyman. So he was legally contracted to ECW, showing up on WCW television. Let me tell you, Paul Heyman was not a fan of that. So because of this, Mike Awesome could not be on the show with his championship belt, and he couldn't talk on the show. And so he literally came in, did a run-in, walked away, couldn't say a word. Oh, the beauty of pro wrestling in 2000. That was then. Moving on to a year later in 2001, this is when SmackDown wasn't live. SmackDown was actually taped, and at this taping from Philly, Jeff Hardy defeats Triple H to become the Intercontinental Champion. Now, here's a move you don't hear about a whole lot that may have been ahead of its time. 2009, okay? That was the year where, we're used to people doing a whole lot on social media now, but Tori Wilson decided to make a bombshell announcement in terms of wrestling on social media. She announced her retirement from pro wrestling by way of MySpace. Yep, it wasn't Twitter. Certainly there was no Instagram. It was MySpace, folks, where Tori Wilson announced that she was retiring from pro wrestling. Pretty gutsy move there because wrestling wasn't really into social media in 2009. 5 years later, 2014, Eric Young defeated Magnus to win the TNA World Championship at a taping of Impact in Orlando. Last but not least, and this one had a lot of controversy to it. And when I tell you, those who will remember. This day in 2018, it was merely 2 days after WrestleMania 34, where Charlotte Flair walked into that night as the SmackDown Women's Champion. She got a beat down from the Iconics. And then before you knew it, here came Carmella to cash in her Money in the Bank and become the new SmackDown Women's Champion. And a lot of people had a whole lot to say about that cash in on Charlotte Flair. I'm sure if Nikki was here, she'd be blowing up the chat right and now. But yeah, that happened on this day in 2018, and these are indeed your vintage wrestling facts.
Vintage wrestling facts. Yeah.
Oh goodness, I remember that.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that. So
people were hot.
But that's the great. It's kind of the catch-22, right? If WWE were to give us everything we wanted, we'd be pissed because it's just like it's boring. So it's kind of nice when they do things that it's unexpected. It doesn't make sense to us. Like it's one of those things that they have the inner workings of the company that we have no idea. All the little nuances.
Yeah.
Like, Charlotte's like, yo, I need a break. Like,
right.
Now, all the little nuances that we don't need, that we don't know. Dylan say Iconic's debut was great. Yeah, and look at them now. Do they both have babies? Is one baby, I think.
I know there's one for sure. Yeah, but there's one.
Yeah, they need to come back and book. Yeah. Well, it doesn't seem like it seems like they're good.
Yeah, they seem happy right now, So that's very interesting. And you always wonder too, the landscape of wrestling changes so much. You kind of wonder what the space would be right now for the Iconics, particularly in a space like WWE, given all that's happening with their women's division. So it'd be interesting.
We need a tag team.
We absolutely need a tag team. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. A real tag team.
Too, I don't think. Oh, it is. If you watch the interview that I did with Shayna, she talked about it, and she talked about the fact that her and Ronda are actually truly friends, and they've been pitching being a tag team for a while. So it seems like that's what they're setting up for it. It seems like they are working on like a name, and like they're like trying to legitimately become a tag team. Whether WWE wants that and it actually all happens, that's a whole nother story. But yeah, we can let's put the oh no, did I not? We haven't put him in a box in a while. Let's put the tag teams, that whole story in it. Let's just leave it alone because ain't nobody listening to us. Because baby. All right. Do we have anything else?
It's a thing. Yes, we do have one thing, All Access, which I know we are going to briefly talk about because we do have a full after show on All Access. So you guys make sure you check that out when it airs. But
our after show.
There it is. Dr. Britt Baker has become kind of one of the main characters, her along with Adam Cole on this particular show. And she talked a bit about how strange it was to film, because obviously they were talking about a lot of things and they had to figure out small things like, how do you take your mic off when you're going to the bathroom, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But she found a way of figuring it out. And one of the primary stories in there is talking about what went on in the women's division, particularly with Thunder Rosa as the interim WWE, Lord help me, AEW Women's Champion. And she was out on injury. And then with the interim situation being handled as well, lots of questions and concerns. And so at the end of the day, they do talk about this on that show. So it's certainly something to happen. And in fact, if you watch the show, you see Thunder Rosa is actually on there talking about it as well, where Thunder Rosa, talks about the fact that she was hurt, that people thought that she would actually feign the injury when she's really injured. But yeah, some real issues, though. Britt Baker is kind of trying to smooth things over in terms of saying, in terms of her relationship with Thunder Rosa. But one of the questions that's out there is, why in the world is Thunder Rosa not there? And she was saying, she being Britt, that people on Twitter will twist your words and, kind of have you say things that you didn't say. So one of the things that she said was asking whether or not Thunder Rosa was able to travel, since she's traveling all over the place. And so, the question is, hey, why can't you cut a promo? Why can't you come do commentary, say hi to the locker room? Chris Statlander was kind of the example that was used because her knees have been blown out for a year, and yet she's there every single week. So she asked that question, and it was kind of turned into something else. And that was something that she had some concerns about. But I think this is interesting because what certainly appeared to be the case, if you watch All Access, is there's definitely a bit of a rift there in that women's division surrounding Thunder Rosa and surrounding this interim title when it relates to calling someone an interim champion while somebody is there actually doing the work, which in this case was Toni Storm.
Yeah, I agree, Dylan. All Access AEW was better than I expected. Although the producer in me, I can't enjoy television like I used to. Because I'm just there's certain situations that happen and I'm just because Thunder Rosa and Britt had a great match.
Yes.
Right. And just, being a fly on the wall, just watching how wrestlers interact. If there was an issue as far as why Thunder Rosa is not doing 36, it's not like she doesn't have her number. And also, too, it's not Mission Pro, it's AEW. So for her to not show up, there has to be some type of reason. Tony Khan is not going to just, certain things I feel like he's just whatever, y'all do whatever.
Right.
But I feel like her just not showing up without any explanation just seems very not he has to know what's going on and why she's not showing up. But she's now on commentary, etc. So I don't know. It is interesting. Whether to me, because it's reality TV and reality TV is not even real, it's not. So it's part of it is pushing the narrative, because no matter what, you're always going to need, whether it's reality or scripted, you're always going to need a villain.
Right.
So how much of it is, okay, this is what the picture is, and if we tweak a certain couple things here and there, this is how we can make it look. How much of it is that, and how much of it is this is just, because all the interim championship, that's all Tony Khan's doing.
Yes.
That's his choice.
Yes.
So you can't get mad at Thunder Rosa for a decision, because he'd be like, okay, you're injured. You don't know when you're going to be back. Okay, you have this amount of time. You're going to have to give it up. It's very cut and dry. So,
or at least it should be.
Right. So it is very interesting. I mean, I am curious to see how everything's going to play out on that show. So definitely check out the show, and definitely check out our after show, our post show to that. But what did you think thus far?
I've actually liked All Access. I think it's some of the best work that AEW has produced, period. I did not expect to like the show at all. So I've been very pleasantly surprised by what I have seen. I remember saying before that I really wasn't sure what stories they would tell us, because we were most interested, I thought, in, everything that happened at the scrum and the like. And obviously they're at a space where they can only legally talk about so much. So bringing us into where, the Bucks are coming back and watching what that looks like, that's pretty cool to see. In the other spaces, and I will say this as somebody who is in a few locker rooms, I don't know how necessary, and I think Dylan just made that comment about AEW trying to be different. I don't know how necessary it is to go too far behind the curtain. I don't know. I think, and this is probably another discussion for another day, you know, I already think that too many people are too far behind the curtain already, you
Mm-hmm.
know, when it comes to certain terminologies, when it comes to, you know, the kind of access that's presented to everyday fans. I mean, you know, the things that fans discuss on a daily basis. I don't know that we're having all of these discussions in the NBA or the NFL or things of that nature. And
Right.
so it's really different in that regard. And I think that in the efforts of continuing to pull the curtain back so far, there's the potential to diminish the product. You know, if you get to a point where, I mean, I think we've all grown to the space where we're okay with, okay, these two people don't really mortally hate each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we're okay with being able to understand that these two people are competing. But is it necessary to then go further and talk about, okay, well, how are we going to create this storyline, and how are we going to create this promo, and is this real? Is this like, I think it ends up, you know, as we look at it, and I think, you know, Bianca Belair and several others have done interviews talking about how pro wrestlers already don't get the respect that the business deserves, because people keep seeing, you know, this whole idea of, oh, well, because it's predetermined, then it's the F word. And
Mm-hmm.
to me, I'm just sitting here going, well, all of the things that people endure, whether it's getting on planes, trains, and automobiles in terms of travel, the training you have to do in the gym to get your body right, the work you have to do in the ring, your body is not meant to take those types of bumps. And I think when by showing the young bucks going back into the ring, having not done it for 2 months, and their body immediately felt like a car crash, it's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, maybe at some point people will respect the business, but you don't want to be the one to unravel the respect that people could gain by turning around and telling all of the things that people don't necessarily need to know. For instance, the Sammy Guevara, oh gosh, his name just left me just that fast.
Eddie Kingston.
Eddie Kingston, yes. Sammy
Uh-huh.
Guevara, Eddie Kingston. When that war happened and we heard all the things in terms of the backstage stuff and things like
Mm-hmm.
that, like, we were all good with it. Nobody needed to see. Nobody. We were able to trust what we saw. So then they show the segment where, you know, hey, he cut this promo. They got into a fight, but now we see them have a conversation, and it's like, Eddie Kingston works very hard so that people will believe who he is. And
Mm-hmm.
so seeing an Eddie Kingston calmly saying, hey man, we're good. You know, when you're in the ring, we're not good. But I'm like, you're taking one of the hardest guys and you know, kind of diminishing a lot of who he is.
And the
So
fact too, he asked actually before that, he said, "Is this being filmed?" Do you hear that?
right. Yes. Yes. So I think it's very interesting. It's very interesting. Granted, I do think some of the stories are intriguing.
Mm-hmm.
But again, you know, because you said, and you're right, in any show, we need a villain, we need somebody not to like, we need conflict. And if we're getting the presentation that everybody's family,
Yeah.
shows, and I hate the idea that well-meaning, wonderful, loving families just don't do well in entertainment spaces, but they don't.
They don't.
So, you know,
Somebody, there's an outside factor. It's the natural storyline for everything. Like
absolutely,
even
there has to be
in
a
your
villain.
life,
Yeah,
there's you could have had the best family, but you know the neighbor's dog could have been your arch nemesis. Like
right.
there's always a villain.
Yeah. So I think, as good as much as I like the show, I'm concerned with all of the backstage stuff that doesn't necessarily need to go on for people to still be invested in the product.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, we'll see what happens.
we will.
But we are running short on time. So with
Mhm.
that, I'm gonna have you give all the facts, all the things. We're gonna run into a commercial and then run into the outro because that's how it's
Sounds
gonna run
good.
today. So where
Excellent.
can everybody find you?
You can find me at Bonnerfied on all of the socials. You can check out my commentary work with Southern Honor Wrestling on IWTV. We have a big show coming up this Friday, so check that out. You can check out my commentary work on Battle Slam on Fight TV, and we've got our 1-year anniversary coming on April the 23rd. And then you can check out my work with the Nightmare Factory on their YouTube page. We've got Student Showcase 9 coming up very soon, so be on the lookout for that. You can check me out on Wrestle Extra with my good brothers A Dazzle and WrestleManiac UK Mex. You can check that out tomorrow, 6:30 p.m. BST, 1:30 p.m. Eastern, and whatever other time frame that translates. And of course, you can check me out here all week long on WWT Live.
All right, y'all. You can follow me on everything at TK Trinidad. Make sure you're checking us on all the social media platforms at www.talkpod.com and www.talkpod. And stay tuned if you love WoW, and you should, because you love women's wrestling. Our after show is happening right now. We'll see you guys on Wednesday. Ciao. Hey peeps, TK Trinidad here, boss lady of Women's Wrestling Talk. And I want to say thank you so much for watching, because you've got millions of options. Plus, you don't have to worry about sharing your password to check us out. But while you're here, hopefully you know we have so many more shows to watch, like Turnbuckle Glam, Raw post-show, WoW post-show, AEW Dynamite post-show, Women's Wrestling Army post-show, NXT post-show, Impact Wrestling post-show, AEW Rampage and SmackDown Live post-show, On the Scroll, ROH post-show, WWT Live, plus all of our interviews with the hottest women's wrestlers in the game. Make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe. Check out our website at www.talkpod.com and follow us on all social media platforms at www.talkpod, and make sure to spread the word. That means send this to the group chat. Yes, even the person with the green bubble. Thanks again so much for watching Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling show on the planet. Ciao for now.
Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling show on the planet.